Hello and welcome to episode 45 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello. I gotta say, for this episode, I'm kind of scared to be recording right now.
Yeah, so we did a playthrough of this game, 2-player. We've been talking about it for a while, so we decided to just do it. And right as soon as we finished, I lost power, so luckily, everything was fine, but yeah.
That's not even a joke. We finished, we're like, cool, and we just were about to start talking about it, and the power went out. So timing was definitely on our side for that.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing this a little later than usual, so I'm a little tired, but, you know, we're gonna do this. We're just gonna do it. So
I really hope it doesn't go out before we finish this episode.
It is not raining anymore, so I think we're good.
So aside from that, I have an update. For once, me, Mike, I have started playing a game this week, and it surprises me that I'm the one who gets to say that this time.
I am genuinely surprised.
I know. I've heard about this game a lot. Everyone talks highly of it. I talked to some friends. They talked highly about it. I have been playing Slay the Spire all week.
So I have tried to play it multiple times, and it just never grabbed me. I mean, I love roguelites.
Wow.
Obviously, it's my favorite genre, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's the cards that I don't really like card games like that. Like, I love Balatro, but like a deck building game like that.
Yeah. Right before I bought it, because I mean, I never bought a mobile game aside from Stardew Valley. So I had to pay for this. I'm like, I want to do my research just in case. Started looking into it. Northern Line, the guy we watch all the time, he did it like 6 years ago, played it. So I kind of watched that. And then he just rebooted and started playing again. I'm like, holy hell, like what timing of him playing it as I'm looking into it.
It is so weird that you say that because I just watched one of his videos playing it today.
Nice. I don't know. I love it. It hooked me immediately. Like, and I think it's all because of a Chocobo Mystery Dungeon. Like, that was my very first roguelike game. And even though that was a blah game and we didn't really think too highly of it, it got me like, oh, I actually kind of like this style of gaming. So now, I mean, when Balatro comes out, I'm going to be buying that. Slay the Spire, I've been playing all week. And I mean, I didn't really beat a run yet. I keep dying. But I love the fact of you learn as you go.
Yeah, I actually own it on my Steam Deck, and I downloaded the demo for my phone. And yeah, I don't know. I've always wanted to play it. It's one of those, like, a lot of people say it's their favorite roguelite. So, like, I've always wanted to try it. There's that. There's another one is Dead Cells that a lot of people like that I didn't really care for.
I've heard about that, yeah.
Same thing with Hades. Like, none of them were really my vibe, but I want to go back to all of them at some point and give them another shot. Roguelite is my favorite genre, so one day I will play them.
Yeah, I feel like I just opened up this door. Like, I want to now buy Binding of Isaac. I want to try Hades and Dead Cell. Like, I want to get into these games and see what I've been missing this entire time.
Oh, when you start playing Isaac, we're going to have half a podcast about that.
That'll be like bonus content or something. My biggest fear, like, I don't know if it's a fear, but I never wanted to play them because I'm like, oh, like you lose and you got to start over. And I would hate to lose all my progress like that. And I never saw the appeal of you lose and now back to the beginning, you got to do it again. I don't know. Now experiencing some of it, I'm like, I get it now. It's not about winning the first time. It's all about learning.
Learning, figuring out the tricks. In Isaac, for example, like once you know what certain things do, you can be so powerful you break the game in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
There's so many things you can do once you understand the game. And that's what I love about them. That and the fact that it's different every time. It's always random. You never know what's going to happen. It's just so fun.
Yeah, yeah. And like the first game playthrough I didn't make it very far, but I'm like, okay, where was my problem? Oh, I didn't have the right synergies with my cards. I was just grabbing random cards at will. Now my second playthrough, I'm like, okay, what goes with what? How does this work with the other cards I have? And it's another game where, much like Balatro, it's not about having the biggest hand to work with. Like, usually the smallest hand you have is the best one to work with. So I like that too.
Another cool roguelite that you might like is called Peglin.
I may have heard of that.
You ever played Peggle before?
I have, yeah.
It's a Peggle roguelite.
What? I love Peggle.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm going to look into this now after this podcast.
There's a roguelite for everything, dude. I forget if I've talked about this in other podcasts, but there's another one that I played a while ago. It's like an early access game, but it's, in an arcade, whenever there's those machines where you drop a coin and it's supposed to knock the coins off.
Yeah.
They made a roguelite out of that.
I don't know. How?
So you're dropping gears down to try and knock other stuff off, but you get different gears and the gears will like explode a bunch of stuff. It's like there's different abilities and there's a roguelite for anything you could think of.
Wow.
All right, that's enough roguelite talk. So let's get into this game. Crisis Beat was released on August 18th, 2000 in Europe. It was not released in North America. It was developed by Soft Machine, which I've never heard of, and published by Bandai. And this is a pretty straightforward beat 'em up.
Pretty much like I tried to think of a game off the top of my head and I completely blanked on everything. But the old 2D side-scrolling beat 'em ups, it just takes that but puts it into 3D. That's the gameplay right there.
Yeah, I mean, when you say beat 'em up, I think of like Streets of Rage.
That's
It's usually the first one that comes to mind. There's the Ninja Turtles games, the Simpsons game.
Yeah, Golden Axe was a big one back in the day.
That's true. That's another one. Yeah.
So it just takes that concept and just says, hey, let's put this into a 3D environment and then call it a day, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, this era was full of like taking these genres that are traditionally 2D and bringing it into 3D.
Exactly.
But what's your history with beat 'em ups though? Are you a fan?
Okay, so I played a lot of 2D beat 'em ups, like you said, like the Ninja Turtle games, the Power Rangers game.
That one's really good too.
Yep. Golden Axe played a ton of. Whenever it got to like the PlayStation era, that's whenever I started to get into more diverse games like racing games and wrestling games and all that stuff. So I never really went back to the beat 'em up style. So it was interesting to get back into that and to see where it came from after all those years of playing only the 2D ones. How about you?
Yeah, I would say I'm actually pretty close to the same boat as you. Like, I like them. They're fun, but like they lose their appeal pretty quickly for me. You know, you play Streets of Rage, you know, you beat like half the game and then you're like, all right, you know, I've had enough of this. Like I got my fill.
Yep. That's that and hack and slash games. Those fall into the same boat for me of like nothing really ever changes and it just is the same game from when you start to when you end with no variety pretty much.
Yeah, I just feel like these kind of games never really evolved the way that they should have.
Right.
But what's interesting is a lot of people would call the Yakuza games like a modern beat 'em up.
Oh, I never thought about that. That's a good point.
And to me, that is exactly what you need to do to make these games modern. You know, give it this big story, a big open world, but the combat in Yakuza is extremely simple. Like you can do a lot of different things and there's a lot of abilities and all this stuff, but at its core, if you really want to, you can just push 2 buttons the whole game, which is what I do most of the time because I'm there for the story. But
yeah. But no, since you bring that up, that's a great point of how do you make it more modern? And Yakuza is a great example of that.
Yeah, and I think just to get us started with this game, I do like the shots that it's taking to be slightly more modern. There are other beat 'em ups on the PS1. Like I looked at a bunch when I picked this because I solely picked this game because we hadn't played a beat 'em up yet.
True. Yeah.
I just love the aesthetic of this game and I love what they're doing as far as like incorporating a story because a lot of them, you know, think of Streets of Rage, Ninja Turtles, like there's nothing going on there.
Yeah. It's just move to the next area to fight more bad guys and that's about it.
And you get there and they're like, hey, I know you. And then you fight them and you move on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the story in this is you're on this big extravagant boat. You're like a cruise liner or something.
Yeah. I assumed it was like Titanic type of vibe.
Kinda. Yeah. And terrorists take over the boat. And now your whole thing is to now beat through all the terrorists and all the higher ups like are the bosses until you get to the very end. It's a very simplistic story that we've heard time and time again, but I do appreciate that there is story moments between the fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the story is anything special. Obviously, it's very much like an 80s movie, but that's kind of what I like about it. For a beat 'em up, you don't need a serious story. I mean, I love Yakuza, I do, but this to me is for the PS1 and for this era, this is exactly the amount of story that you need for a game like this.
Right, yeah, it does its job for what it needs to be, and it keeps the game moving forward. The translation isn't great because it's Japanese spoken and English dubbed or subbed. Not the best. And one thing I noticed too with the subs is that there's some typos, at least in my playthrough. There are a few typos and I'm like, oh, that gives me a good sign on quality right there.
Yeah, I'm assuming just because this was more of a budget game, at least it seems like it, I would imagine they didn't really give too much of a shit about that. I mean, it didn't even come out in North America when it clearly could have. there's a translation, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I also think, you know, you think about how late in the PS1 this came out, right? 2000 in Europe. I'm assuming it was a year or two before in Japan. So at that point, you know, we're playing Metal Gear Solid, we're playing Siphon Filter, you know, Dino Crisis. Like compared to that, this isn't the biggest budget game. So I can see why they would think it might not sell and not even think it's worth it to put it out.
I get that.
Well, that's what a lot of these games in this era were. You know, it's like they have a good game, but is it really worth the money to go through? Because, you know, you had to print a certain amount of discs and you had to do all this stuff. It's like, I can understand why you wouldn't put it out, but to half-ass the translation, not cool.
Yeah, exactly. So a big thing with this game, you have 4 different characters you could play through. You played with Kenneth, the older guy.
Yeah, he's like a butler.
I played with the child. And then those 2 stories are kind of connected. And then we together played the other guy and the female. So I guess, okay, so here's a good way to start about it. What did you think about the story, seeing it from the different perspectives?
Yeah, we were talking about this as we were playing, but I was really expecting it to be significantly different. And that surprised me because this very much gave me a Resident Evil kind of vibe where, you know, there's 2 stories going on in the same place and they interact with each other at certain key moments, but it's not really like that. You pretty much just play the exact same story as the other characters as if the other ones aren't there with you.
Exactly. Now, when we did the doubles, you and I, with the guy girl, the beginning was definitely different. You started in a different area. There's different like little story scenes until we caught up to the other 2 characters we played. Then once we did that, it just became the same game over again.
Which to me is a little disappointing. I mean, I think they could have just went a little farther and it would have been fine. Like, I'm not saying they had to go all out for this, but they could have just done a little bit of different things and I would have been happy with that.
Like, you don't see the character there, so have the characters be doing something different. Going into a different area that we haven't gone already to in the ships. That way, each playthrough feels unique for each character.
Yeah, and I guess this is a good time to bring up the fact that you can beat this game in an hour and a half.
Yes. Much like Van Ark and stuff, like, if we didn't beat this game, there was a problem because it's so simple.
Yeah, and that just ties into the fact that all the characters are the same. So if it's only an hour and a half, you want people to want to play all the characters. But for me, if I was playing this on my own, I would probably beat the second one, and then never play it again.
Yeah, and to reiterate, like you saying the characters are the same, it's the story of the characters are the same. But I will give it that each character plays very differently.
No, you're right. It's very much like a fighting game in that way, where each character has different moves, different runs, even like different everything. They feel significantly different to play as, which I think is great.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, you went into this time to give each character its own unique fighting style. So why like skimp on the story? It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, you already went this far. Why not just add a little bit more? But
because I agree with you, like I would beat this one time, maybe go through a second time and be like, oh, I already did all this once. Why would I do it again? Because it's not like you unlock anything. There's no progression after you beat it once. So to me, it feels like I beat this once, try it out a second time. Oh, okay. And then it's a game I come back to every so many years whenever I remember about it.
No, exactly. There's just no replay value at all. And I just don't, with this kind of game, you need to have that.
Mm-hmm. Like give me something to go with.
But now that we got those negatives out of the way, I will say this game is pretty fun to play.
Yes and no. So my take is it's fun, but like we just said at the top of the show, after 5 minutes, when you're like now in the third area and you're doing the same thing you just did in the first area, I got bored at that point. And I was only like, 15 minutes into the game. And I'm like, this is going to be long.
I hear you. But then I think like, this is what a beat 'em up is though.
I get that. No, I get that fully. But it goes back to that conversation we had in Blaster Master, where I said, every game has repetition, no matter what you're playing. So why are some games with repetition fun, while other games like this get boring after 5 minutes? And I don't understand why that is. You know what I mean?
I do. And I mean, I said it earlier with this is how I feel about beat 'em ups. Like, to me, they have that shelf life for me where, you know, you get to a certain point and you're like, all right, I've had my fill and I don't really care about this anymore. And I think that's why a lot of them, you know, they were arcade focused.
Exactly.
Playing Ninja Turtles in an arcade with other people is very fun.
Mm-hmm.
But am I going to sit at home and play a 2-hour beat 'em up with someone else? I mean, I guess I just did, but normally I would not. There's plenty of things you can do with these to make them more interesting. I mean, Yakuza, obviously, but I haven't played any of the more modern ones. Like, there is a new Streets of Rage. There is a new Ninja Turtles one, too. And apparently they're really good. They're a lot longer, and there's like unlocks, and like you level up and stuff. And there's like all kinds of, mechanics in it, which that is the route that this genre should have taken a long time ago. And maybe it wouldn't have died for so long. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know if we can criticize it for that. It's tough,
Yeah. I get it. But I mean, so you think this is fun. What was fun about this game for you?
Well, I think it's just kind of mindless in a way. You're just killing enemies, and there's a silly story. There's some chaos happening on the screen. It's just the ridiculousness of it all. I mean, I played as Kenneth. His run is a slide, so I'm just sliding around. Then I keep constantly doing a grab where I grab them and then snap their neck. And I'm just like spamming this while I'm just sliding around. It's ridiculous.
Right.
When we were playing it together, I was playing the one character, and I just kept sliding into everybody while you were trying to attack them.
I know. I'm like trying to punch them, and you could just come baseball sliding into them and take them out. Your score is so much higher than mine just because you kept stealing all the kills.
Exactly. It's like this. It's just silliness, and it's just, stupid fun. Like, I'm not going to take this game super seriously or be like, oh, it's missing a good story, or, you know what I mean? It's, if you know what you're going in for, I think it's fun.
Yeah, and I can see that. I just feel like with all the points you said, it just loses its charm very fast, even with everything that you said. Like, yeah, it is silly and it has its little charm to it, but that only takes it for so long. Even that hour and a half just felt like a very long time to play this.
Yeah, I would say about 40 minutes in, I was like, all right, I've seen all I need to see, but I'm going to beat it.
Yeah. So you mentioned the block, or not the block, as you mentioned the grab. How do you make it happen? Because with my character, I did it every so often, but I could not figure out what the buttons were. Even whenever we were playing together, I thought I was kind of getting it, but I wasn't 100% sure what I was doing at all.
Yeah, it was the same thing for me when we were playing together. But as Kenneth, it was actually really easy to do. You literally just, when you run up to them, any button that you hit besides your triangle attack just grabs him.
Oh, okay.
And then you have like 3 or 4 different attacks you can do based on like what button you use to grab and what button you hit after that.
Oh, okay.
And what I just referred to, by the way, the triangle attack is a slightly more powerful attack that takes a little bit of your health. Most of the beat 'em ups do this, like Streets of Rage does it. They all do it.
So for my character, she has a mop as a weapon. And we should talk about the fighting styles too. The way I looked at the triangle attack was if you're getting crowded by a bunch of people, you use your triangle attack to clear the area so you can get some space to move around.
Yeah, it's just, if you need a quick, powerful attack for some reason, that's always reliable to do that.
Yes, exactly. So fighting style wise, we have like Kenneth, I'm watching your screen. He keeps his hands in his pocket the entire time and kicks everyone.
Yeah, he kind of has that like badass like spy kind of vibe going on.
Yeah. And then mine, like I said, has a mop. So it's really nice to have a weapon the entire time. Then the other female I played, she just did slaps and kicks pretty much.
And the guy that I played, I'm really mad we don't remember their names, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I really don't.
He does a lot of sliding, and he's like a detective, so it's very much like cop energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean when I say like cop energy in an anime style game. You know what I mean?
His name's Aja. Because remember, I'm Aja. I'm a detective.
Is that what it is? All right.
Yeah, it's like Eija. Aya, I think. Aja.
I don't remember because whenever we were playing, I wasn't listening to the talking in it.
Oh yeah, the older lady is JJ because the little girl keeps saying JJ, JJ.
You're right. But yeah, I mean, I like that all the characters have different fighting styles. I think that Kenneth was the most fun just because I could spam that attack over and over again.
Oh yeah.
I had fun as the other guy too. Like all the sliding was fun. That's why I kept doing it.
Yeah. And with the grabs, like each grab is different. So with JJ, she does these like WWE pile drivers and suplexes and whatnot. It's the funniest thing to see this like lady take out these giant men doing these pile drivers and stuff.
Oh, the whole thing is just ridiculous. That's why it's so funny. You're fighting like 10 dudes with guns and you're just jumping on them and snapping their necks or sliding into their knees, you know?
Yeah. So is there a block button?
There is not. I tried to figure it out, but there is not.
Because some of those boss fights, I'm like, I feel like there needs to be a block button because that would save me a little bit of health.
Seems like a huge oversight.
Yeah.
I think you're just supposed to hurry up and jump out of the way. That's all or you can interrupt the attack with one of your attacks if you time it right.
That was a big complaint with me, is that I would jump to get out of the way, but there's some attacks, like especially for the bosses, where usually they'll make a sound right before they do the attack. So that's your signal. Oh, they made the sound, I need to jump. But sometimes it's sound attack and there's no time for you to move. Like the instant you hear the sound, he's already coming at you.
Oh yeah, especially those last like 3 or 4 bosses. There's just attacks that you have to move so fast. You'd have to memorize it. That's all it really is.
Pretty much, yeah.
So how did you feel the controls felt?
It wasn't terrible. My biggest complaint is like I kept dying, or if I died or got hit a lot, it's because I was facing the wrong way while trying to fight. So there'd be a guy right next to me, or like slightly above right next to me, and I'd do a horizontal attack. Or really, I should have done a diagonal attack because that's where he was technically standing. That's the problem with like these early 3D fighters, is the positioning of where you are to the people. That was probably the only complaint, but I felt like the combat was pretty smooth.
I definitely agree with you with the whole like weird perspective thing, especially when you're trying to grab items. Like there's multiple times when we were playing where we were trying to grab health and we just couldn't get at the exact spot we needed to get it.
You had to move slightly more north and to grab it.
My only real complaint is I really hate the whole like double tap to run thing.
Yeah.
I get why they did it, because in this game, like your attacks change based on if you're running. So if you could just always run, then you would be super overpowered.
I get that. But at the same time, you only use the face buttons. You don't use the triggers at all. So if you just had a trigger set to run, I think that'd be a lot easier.
Yeah, if you could just hold down like R1 or something. Like, I hear you. That would probably make it way better. But that's really all I got too, though. I mean, those small complaints, it's like the game feels good to play. I mean, that's important with a beat 'em up.
Mm-hmm. The only time is like, if you have a screen where you have like 2 giant guys attacking you, but then you have a guy with a knife behind you throwing knives at you, and then you have a guy with a gun shooting you, that gets a little frustrating because you can't be everywhere at one time. So for me, I like always target. Anytime I saw a guy with a gun, I targeted the guy with the gun. And once he was gone, I went to the next in line for the most annoying character.
Yeah, we also steamrolled the hell out of this game. 2-player, by the way.
We did. I think we made it about 90% of the way through the game, never ever losing a life, and maybe almost running out of health. But that was like one time we almost ran out of health.
Yeah, I don't think we lost any lives until like the last few bosses. And I think that was mostly due to us kind of being careless and just talking. Like it wasn't because it was hard. We just weren't paying attention.
We were just having a full-on conversation about something else. I know half the time I wasn't even paying attention to what I was doing. I was just fighting people. And so we definitely got careless. And that's where a lot of the deaths came from. But the final boss, his second phase, hardest boss in this entire game.
Harder than the whole rest of the game combined.
Exactly. This one fight took all of my lives. And I was literally on 0 left.
I was down to 1.
Yeah. And I was like, I didn't have difficulty at all this entire game until this final fight. Which I guess that the final fight is the strongest, but I feel like we should have seen more challenge like that throughout the rest of the game.
To be fair, though, we also played on easy, so we have to say that.
We did, but for how difficult it was on easy, imagine that on difficult.
Yeah, we also don't know what happens when you run out of lives completely, but if I made it to the end of the game on like normal or hard and then died to him and had to start over, I would never play this game again.
Yep. I was on the verge of, that was almost my life with this game. So another big thing is what did we determine? 50,000 points?
I think it's 100,000.
Yeah, we're still not sure about that. Either 100,000 or 50,000 points, you get an extra life. So for the final boss, I was down to 0 and running out of health. Luckily, I landed a few hits that got me a couple more thousand points, and I got that extra life and then died. And I was like, oh, I got saved right there from quitting forever.
Yeah, I mean, since we didn't die and I was getting way more points than you because I was taking all your kills.
Yeah.
I had like 5 lives going into the final boss, I think. 4 or 5.
I think it was 4 because you lost one right before that too.
I lost all of them. I was down to 1 just on that one phase of that boss.
And that's both of us going at him nonstop. So it's like, it is ridiculous playing solo against that guy.
But hey, it's the final boss. It has to be hard.
Yeah,
Maybe they went a little overboard, but
yeah. For all the other bosses, though, at least for me, I don't know if you did this too, but the strategy I used was get them against the wall, get them in a corner, and just keep spamming the same combo over and over again.
I didn't use the corner thing, but I would just spam an attack. Then I would run away from them as they did their attack when they first get up, which most of them do, and then just repeat.
And yeah, I ran away, let them stand up, go back, and they're in the corner so they can't go anywhere. Hit them a bunch of times, do the combo. They fall down and repeat. So sorry if our footage is boring because we're just doing the same thing, but that's the way to play the game.
I mean, dude, that's how I play every game. If there's an easy way to beat it, I'm gonna do it. A little off topic, but it's the same thing with like Dark Souls and stuff. It's like people don't want to use the summons and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm going to make the game as easy as I can for myself. And that's fun. You know, cheesing it. That cheesing a game is fun. That's why people do it.
When you can find exploits, you must use those exploits.
Now, if we're talking something where like, you know, you're cheating or like glitching it or something, then that's different. But if you're just cheesing it a normal way, like more power to you.
I mean, I feel like in that same vein, even glitching a game is still, you're finding something about the game that you can do to make it a little bit easier on yourself. I mean, that's where all the speedrunning comes from too.
That's fair. I'll give you that. I just think it's stupid when people get mad when you cheese stuff. But back on topic.
Well, we said it early on in the show, in the series, that just play the game how you want. If you like to play it with no summons or anything, you do it that way. If you like to, just as long as you're happy playing the game, that's all that matters.
Exactly how I feel about it.
So it took me a long time to realize that there was health in the objects in the environment. I kept finding health and I'm like, oh, cool, there's health. I never knew why I found health. And then randomly one day I picked up, or one of the things, I picked up a bench and threw it at someone and there's health underneath. I'm like, oh, I've been missing this the entire game.
Yeah, I probably found it like halfway through my playthrough because like I was picking up everything I could. Why not? It is hard to aim things at enemies. Like you have to be pointed directly at them as you're picking it up or you won't hit them. But even if I was missing them, I was still picking up every one. Why not? I like the fact that they give you objects in the environment to throw at people. I think that's a nice touch. Yeah. And there's also weapons that certain enemies will drop, but I don't know. I never really felt like they were worth it. Like I was messing around with them when we were playing together, but you drop them when you get to the end of a level anyway. And I always found that my normal attacks were just more fun and most of the time did more damage anyway. So it's like, what's the point?
I will say, like you say weapons, there's only one weapon. I think you can only pick up a knife when the guy with the knife drops it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, I don't think there's any, aside from the little girl who has a mop, there's no other weapons in this game. And I wish there was, like, say there's that lady who has like those blades on her hand or something. It'd be cool if you could pick those up and wear them and like you can get a few hits in before they wear out and go away. That would be cool.
I mean, even just the classic beat 'em up weapon, a bat.
Yes. But like, because they have the guy with the knife and he drops his knife when you kill him. Well, they have a guy with a shield. So why does he not drop a shield whenever you kill him? Because that would be nice to have.
It does insinuate there's going to be more than one weapon when a weapon drops. Like one weapon for the entire game is a little ridiculous. I do think the graphics for this game are very good though.
Very good. I mean, they're better than some of the ones we've seen, but
hey, we played Tale of the Sun last week. You know, let me have this.
That is true. I like what they're definitely ambitious on the way their characters are modeled. I'll give them that. Like they definitely try to put detail in there. My very first note I made for this game was the PlayStation wobble is out of control for this game. Like that beginning cutscene, everything is shaking like it's an earthquake going on.
Yeah, I feel you. I just think it has a very cool style, very much anime and like action movie, like we were saying. But I just like that it all has a good look to it. It's not super generic. It doesn't look outright bad. I mean, sure, it's blocky, but I like that. It's like Tekken almost.
Yeah, I thought Tekken 2 when I saw the character models. A little bit better than Tekken, I would say, probably.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. The music is also very good.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting tired of saying that now because I feel like every episode now I'm like, oh, the music was great. You said it. It's a PlayStation music around this time was very good. So I'm just accepting that even the worst games are probably going to have really good music.
Yeah, I feel like whenever there's a game that has bad music, it's going to be very notable for that.
Yeah, we will be sure to call that out. But when music is like absolutely amazing, like Vanark was a good example of that, we'll be sure to point out how good it is when it shouldn't be that good.
Yeah, to be fair, this music is not amazing, but it is good.
It is. It goes back to that 80s action movie thing that you were talking about, which at the start of every fight, it says action. Like you are in a movie. It's really cool. And then when you're done, it's like, oh, scene clear. So it's like, is this like a whole like, oh, we're in a movie type thing? Or are they trying to give it that movie feel?
I can't believe I didn't even put that together in my brain.
Oh, really?
No.
Like whenever I heard the music and I kept seeing action, I'm like, oh, okay. I guess that's what they're going for. And it works for the theming. So I like it.
Yeah, I mean, that late 80s, early 90s action movie, this totally is that.
Yeah. A big thing too, very small detail, but I really appreciated it, was in the very beginning cinematic when they're kind of doing that really fast zoom out flyby of the ship. Whenever they're passing by the light poles, there's that like swooshing sound as you would have flying by light poles. It was just this small little touch with it. I'm like, you easily could have not added that and no one would notice or care. But the fact that you put those little swooshes past every light pole, I'm like, that's a nice little touch that is probably going unnoticed by everyone who plays.
It was unnoticed by me, I'll tell you that. No, I love that. That's really cool. It really just seems like they wanted to make an action movie, That's what this is.
But then it goes back to, oh, okay, you threw in little details like that, but then you are left with this final product that doesn't have those little details in it.
Yeah, this game could really benefit from a sequel just to expand upon all this.
Yeah. I will say once the game started, I instantly got Siphon Filter vibes because the green text on the screen with the way the text sounded as it was typing, I was like, this is an interesting start. Like, this is literally Siphon Filter right now.
That's true. It's very much like that spy, like secret agent kind of vibe. It doesn't really hold over through the whole thing,
It
but
does not.
it is there. But yeah, I mean, I pretty much went through all of my notes. There's not really much more to say on this, I feel like, unless you got anything.
I was going to say, I really hope you have something more because I'm out. There's nothing else I have to say.
I guess one other thing I could mention is I really like at the end of each level, whenever you get the final attack on the boss.
Ooh, yeah.
It does that slow-mo. It kind of just looks like shit, but in a good way.
It gives it that very cinematic feel of the screen goes white, like the background is white except for you and the boss. And the slow-mo thing is a really nice epic touch to the fact that you just beat the boss.
I don't remember if it's Tekken or not, but one of those fighting games does that on the final hit of like whenever you're knocking them out.
I'm now going back in my memory of Tekken and I can't recall if that was a thing.
It might be, but regardless, there is a game that does that, and I love it. It just makes it so that final attack just feels so good.
Yeah. I did that on one of the boss that has the henchmen coming in.
Yeah.
So one of the henchmen dropped a knife and the boss was kind of low. So like I beat up the one henchman, picked up the knife and threw the knife at the boss and it did the slow motion thing. I'm like, that was the coolest thing I'll do in this entire game.
When we were playing together, there was the one time I was like, let me slide into him as the final attack.
Yeah. And the other thing too that made me realize the story, I mean, we do have story, but it kind of bugged me a little bit how, and this was a big thing for the time, like those 90s movies, where the stakes are so high that it just is too unrealistic. Like the whole plan is we're going to use this weapon to destroy the entire world and everyone dies. It's like, okay, so you're just killing yourself and everyone. So then where's the point of that? Like, where's your plan to live past the bomb?
Well, yeah, there's also the part where they're like, we're now in the hurricane. They can't get us.
Oh, yeah. They switch the ship to go away from like getting tracked or something and they turn into a hurricane. But there's no outcome from it. It's just, oh, now you're in a hurricane, but nothing happened.
It's just so ridiculous. Like, it reminds me of like an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie or like Sylvester Stallone or just
Yeah, exactly.
something so just outlandish. It's just insanity. But I love that. It's stupid. Like, this is not fucking art. You know what I mean? I guess it is art, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Even the key to like get the bomb is what that one girl had to be sacrificed and they had to use her eye, her blood, and something else.
I forgot about that. That makes no fucking sense.
It's like, okay, is it only this one specific random little girl? Is it any little girl that you need? Like, there's no explanation to why. And a big frustration too is just the story just is like pieced together. Like, hey, now we're doing this. Hey, now we're doing this. Hey, we're the bad guys. But there's no explanation in between to all of that.
they're just running from place to place, killing whoever's there, pretty much.
Yeah. Could you imagine if this was like an open world game? Like, say, like with Resident Evil or something, where you're running around this area. You're clearly contained onto the ship. So imagine if you were running around on the ship to these different areas and it says, hey, get to this, what was it, the amusement tower or something?
Yeah.
And you had to go find the amusement tower and fight people along the way.
I think that would be pretty cool. Like some sort of like take Resident Evil, make it a beat 'em up, get rid of the horror, and kind of make it about exploring a ship while fighting whoever you find. I like that.
Because it's constantly like, get to this area, but you're never in control of getting to that area. You're literally just fighting through the sections until you get there.
There's got to be a game that exists like that on the PS1. I feel like there has to be.
Maybe we'll find it
One day.
And before we get in, sorry. As we're like, I'm just now slowly piecing back all the things.
I'm like breathing in to say the next line and you're like, wait.
Were you about to do the reviews?
Yeah, I was.
So another big thing that we kept doing today and we still can't figure out is the counter attack. We forgot to talk about that.
Yeah, because I don't know how to do it. I'm assuming it's when an enemy is about to grapple you and you attack right in that moment and then you do like a super powerful attack.
Yeah, it's called like the lock-on counter. And I think it's a one-hit kill if you land it, but we could never figure out why we landed it or how. But it's really cool in some areas where if you're standing next to a guardrail and you do this, you can kick them through the guardrail and they fall off the edge and die.
I didn't even know that. That's sick.
Yeah, you even did it like 3 times when we were playing together.
Well, maybe I didn't notice. There was a lot going on, all right?
And then there's that one in the mall with the Titanic, or it's technically not the Titanic, but I did it right next to that and the whole thing blew up and we all got injured because of it.
I do remember that. You're right.
So it's like, there are these cool little things and it makes you wonder, what if I stand in front of this and do this attack? Like you would have to understand how it works, but there's probably so many little Easter egg things that we never got to see.
That's true. There is a lot of little touches in this game, just not the little touches that we want, you know?
Yeah. Okay, that's all from my memory. You can get into the reviews now.
All right. So I got a couple reviews here. This game got mostly bad reviews.
That's not surprising.
I don't know. I don't think it's that bad of a game. I guess we'll get into that in a minute. But German magazine Video Games gave it a 66 out of 100. And they said, the gameplay is simple, but it's incredibly fun. The bottom line, however, is that the outdated graphics and the lack of lasting fun are annoying. After Crisis Beat has been played through twice, the game disappears back into the closet. Renting it for 3 days makes more sense.
I agree with that. Yeah, this was just in a Blockbuster or something at the time. I am 100% renting this and just playing it for a couple of days.
I mean, this review is literally almost exactly what we've been saying.
Yep.
And a too harsh review, Now Gamer gave it a 4.5 out of 10. That is too far. They said, if Fighting Force has stopped providing the necessary beat-em-up fix, then Crisis Beat might be worth a butcher's, if only for a few hours, just to tide you over until the next biggie comes along. Let's hope it's soon, though, because dirge like this, like a rotting corpse, stinks after a couple days.
Wow.
Yeah, it's that's what I was saying. It's just uncalled for, just rude.
I think they're coming from the perspective of us as well. Of like, you get half an hour into this game and you're done. Like you've seen everything it has to offer. You've seen everything it has to offer in 5 minutes, but you don't realize it until a half hour in. And I mean, I get it. I don't think I know about Fighting Force. Is that a good one?
I've never played it. I've heard of it, but I've never played it.
Okay. The name does sound familiar, but I don't think I've ever seen anything by it. So I get that it's a harsh score, but I also can understand where he's coming from with it. He or she, they. I know where they're coming from.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's tough with beat 'em ups. I struggled a lot with my score. Even right now, I'm thinking about it. I'm about to say it's time for our scores, and I don't even know what I want to do.
It comes down to even the fighting games. Up until Soul Edge, we don't prefer them. So it's really hard to, like, someone who loves these types of games loves beat 'em ups and probably will get this game a higher score because of it. I mean, the same went with like Resident Evil, how we gave it a kind of a lower and Kyle went high with it because he loves those types of games. I get it, but I feel like we're fair even though we don't like the games. And I also had trouble with my score too.
Yeah, I mean, we're casual fans of a lot of genres. It's tough to give a fair score to a style that you're not super well versed in, but at the same time, I think we're fair. So
Yeah.
with that, let's see how fair we really are.
Oh boy.
Even right now, I'm looking at the game list, just trying to think of where I want to put this. But when I first started playing this,
Can I say something real fast?
yeah,
I like how you say that. And we had this huge discussion last week about this. How you said we should also be scoring it like on its own, but also to the list. We talk about this in Elemental Gerbold, and you specifically say we shouldn't be comparing games to other games in the list because it stands on its own and we should be doing it on its own.
well,
so at some point you switched mindsets.
listen, that was a long time ago. I'm a different person now. All right.
You're evolved now.
I can't believe I said that. I'm full of shit, I guess. I don't know. I think over time it's kind of morphed into, for me, like at first I was just checking the list to make sure I was being consistent with myself and my own feelings.
Mhm.
Like, if I'm going to give this game a 4, would I rather play the games that are 4s more or less than this game? Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I kind of went through that. And then now that we're so deep into this, we have 50 games on this. So there's a lot to take into account. And I think over time I've kind of gone into that mindset. But in the interest of avoiding the exact conversation we had last week at the end of the podcast, I'm going to say first 15 minutes, I was sitting high, 7.58. I was like, this is a great beat 'em up. Like, I'm really surprised at the story. Like, there's a lot going on here. But then you realize that that's all there is. And after that 15 minutes, you don't really see much new outside of a few little things. So I think I'm going to go with a 6.5.
Ooh. Okay. That's a lot higher than I thought you were going to go.
I still like this game. I think it's fun. Is it amazing? Is it anything special? Not really. But, I had a good time for an hour and a half, and I had a good time when we played it together. So am I ever going to think about this game again? No. But it is what it is.
Also, I mean, yeah, I called you off for the conversation we've been having. Call myself out here. I notice every time you give a score, it doesn't matter what number it is. I say, ooh, that's higher than I thought it was going to be. Every single time. It doesn't matter. I need to get better at not doing that. I don't know why I'm always so shocked at you saying a number.
That's funny.
Because you're like, oh, I'm like, oh, higher than I thought. What did I think? Like, yeah, that's roughly where I'm sitting too. So why is that higher than I thought? Everything you said, I agree with. Doing solo play, I was sitting at between a 5 or 5.5, kind of low. But I did say when we were playing together that playing it with 2 people did bump it up a little bit. It was more fun playing it with 2 people. Because of that, I would have went on the higher end of 5.5 regardless. So I'm probably on the solo end. I'm going to go up a half point. I'm going to say it's a 6. Specifically just because the 2-player mode helped out with that a lot. Yeah, I think it could be a lot better, but I think it did what it could fine.
Yeah, I think the whole 6 to 7 range is kind of where this game sits. It's like, it doesn't do enough to push it above that, but somewhere in that range I feel is fair.
So that puts us at a 6.25. And for once, we have a one-way tie, or a two-way tie with Crash. The original Crash. I'm going to just be that person and say that this is underneath Crash Bandicoot.
I agree with you there, for sure.
Okay. I was hoping you were going to argue on that.
No, I mean, I think back about our first episode. It's been a long time since we recorded that one too. And I wonder if we played Crash again, if we'd give it a slightly higher score,
Yeah. And just in context between the 2 games, it's just, yeah, they have the same score, but I just feel like Crash Bandicoot has more to offer, like more level variety, more variety in enemies and how everything looks. With this, the enemies you see in stage 1 is the enemies you see at the end of the game. Sure, you get some new ones popping in every so often, but it never truly changes all that much.
Yeah, we never mentioned that there's like literally 5 or 6 enemies the whole game.
Yeah.
So that puts Crisis Beat at number 28, right above Persona and right below Crash Bandicoot 1.
Yeah, it's good. I like that.
Yeah, I have no qualms with that. I think, like we always say, the 6s are the games that could have been a lot better if they made a few changes, but they're fine as is. They just have a lot of improvements that could be made.
Yeah. And now that we have the 2-player thing going, I'm sure at some point we're going to be going back playing the other games that had 2-player modes that we just never did. Like, I'm so excited to play Soul Edge and us fighting each other. That's going to be very entertaining.
You won't be excited when we're actually playing it though, and I'm beating you.
I know. I'm just yelling at you the entire time.
You're just like, God damn it.
But like even, what was it? Magical Tetris. We could do that against each other.
That would be so fun.
Oh, so I mean, there may be videos coming through. We're going to do test runs, maybe do a second like show kind of let's plays of us playing these together. But also it could change our score with the 2-player mode, either for the better or for the worse.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be playing it for the episode anyway. Might as well record it. Might as well turn it into a thing. Have some fun.
Yeah.
Well, all right. That's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We will see you next week.